So once again, welcome to Easy Tours. Today is the 5th of July, Friday, 2024. Now, this host of events, political events in Britain, basically happened on the 4th of July, 2024, which I will say is the Independence Day from the Tory rule in Britain for the past 14 years. Now, these videos are going to be made in two parts. One, to address basically the outgoing PM Rishi Sunak and his record. And the next one is to talk about the incoming Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer. And so I will begin by playing this video, which I got from a friend, and it really sums up what has really happened in this country in the past 14 years. Now, what is remarkable about British politics is the sophistication of the British electorate. Now, Britain is the home of democracy, the Magna Carta, the rule of law, separation of powers, independence of the judiciary, and anything, basically freedom of the press, and anything that supports democratic rule. This is a nation, small but leads the world in this area of politics. But what have we seen in the past 14 years? It's just basically the breaking down of all these systems that really establishes this nation in global politics. What are some of the issues here? When we look at the Rwanda scheme with the Rishi Sunak and his effort of overturning the ruling of the Supreme Court of this Rwanda, now a law, which used to be the Rwanda bill, it really shows you the length at which this Prime Minister was willing to go just to somehow tarnish that independence of the judiciary. So many other events have gone on. These are sort of economic events. So, for example, Lord Moylan, who is a Tory peer, confirmed on the Great Debate, on the show of the Great Debate, which was hosted by Trevor Phillips in 2023, confirmed that is about 840 billion pounds that was basically printed into the economy since 2009. Out of that amount, Rishi Sunak, when he was Chancellor, printed 450 billion pounds. And this basically was leading on to the COVID era. And a lot of this money went into sort of the PPE scandal. These monies, because they were actually printed cash, they were bound to be inflationary. Now, if you look at an economy that had interest rates so low that house prices literally doubled, the printing of this 450 billion pounds was inflationary. And obviously, it tends to feature a year or so after the printing of the cash. So these monies were printed under Rishi Sunak. Monies went into PPE and so many other dodgy deals. These monies, I'm sure, took flight out of this country, but then came back maybe a year later to cause serious inflationary tendencies. The Bank of England was then forced to raise interest rates based on this inflationary tendencies, which I think obviously a great deal of it was not necessarily the fact that, you know, there was so much inflation coming out of this COVID and Ukraine war, but the sheer fact that there were no regulators. Nobody regulates prices in this country. So it got to the point where any market where they have the sort of monopoly power or cartel power, like the supermarkets, like the airport parking charges, like, utility household utility bills, everything was just like going up and up and up. And the ordinary guy that is working hard in this country basically is working as a slave, because you work and then you don't get anything at the end of the month. But all these monies were being taken away from the hardworking people of this nation and creating millionaires and billionaires in this country. And so this guy's video really sums up what has happened in the past 14 years. Eventually, as I understand, Sunak then basically signed off as a chancellor, knowing what was coming after him printing that 450 billion pounds, and then basically set up Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng to take the bait. And they did, and obviously things went wrong in a short space of time, in less than 50 days. And this started this upward trend of the rises of interest rates. And obviously everybody is blaming Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng, but in reality, the actions really started with Rishi Sunak. The guy then comes back later on as a prime minister and is a real smooth talker. But a lot of the losses, the financial losses that this country have faced, and the amount of suffering that has come to families, this guy is the guy responsible for all these things. So he comes back as a PM and he's a smooth talker. And obviously they didn't even come in from a democratic perspective, but it was more like a bit of an oligarch coup. But now the impact of him being in that position has been felt today on the 5th of July 2024, where all the gains that were made by Boris Johnson in 2019 has basically fallen. And basically the Tory party has lost about 249 seats to the Labour Party and so many other small parties. So let's go on straight to this guy's video, because he sums it up better than I can.
As we look back at the last 14 years of Conservative rule, as we look back at this gaggle of obdurate, arrogant, stubborn, unrepentant, heartless, self-serving bunch of arseholes who have spent the last 14 years trying to keep their useless, megalomaniacal political party together while sleepwalking the country into a kitchen blender. 14 years, 5 prime ministers, 7 chancellors, 8 foreign secretaries, 13 culture secretaries, one of whom was Nadine Dorries, a woman so stupid she thinks Channel 4 is a brand of perfume. 8 home secretaries, including grinning exorcist doll Priti Patel, Sajid Javid, James Hilarious rape jokes cleverly, and far-right pin-up Suella Braverman. Twice, a woman who says multiculturalism has failed, even though her, Patel, Javid cleverly, Sunak, Kwarteng, Zahawi, Badenoch are proof that even if you do have brown skin, you too can become a vicious, festering, regressive, lying, greedy, nasty, eye-wateringly wealthy, but morally bankrupt cunt. No fewer than 16 housing ministers, which explains why the UK is the most difficult place to find a home in the developed world. In 2000, a home cost 4 times the average salary. Now it costs 8 times the average salary, and workers are 11 grand worse off a year after 15 years of almost completely unprecedented wage stagnation. We've gone from 29 billionaires to 177 billionaires, whilst the working classes endured crippling austerity. The highest taxes in 70 years, lowest corporate taxes in 50 years. The rich are richer and the poor are much poorer, and your average high street is boarded up. We've endured David Cameron's hubris, Theresa May's chaos, Boris Johnson's lies, and Liz Truss throwing £30 billion of your money down the shitter. £100 billion in lost trade due to Brexit. £40 billion in lost tax revenues due to Brexit, whilst our farmers and our fishermen were sold down the river. The worst trade deficit since records began, and our national debt is now at £3 trillion. Average student debt has gone from 5k to 50k. Homelessness has doubled. Child poverty has tripled. An energy crisis that has little to do with the war in Ukraine and more to do with unfettered capitalism and unbridled greed. Highest energy bills in Europe, with 6.7 million people currently living in fuel poverty. The party of law and order have overseen record backlogs in the Crown Court, delays of 5 years for rape cases, with rapists being spared jail because the prisons are full. Chronic shortages of judges on top of a narrative that says they're all enemies of the people. They sold off 600 police stations. They cut police numbers by 21,000, then increased police numbers by 20,000, which is not an increase in police numbers, no matter how many times they tell you it is. Highest train fares in Europe, lowest state pension in Europe, longest waiting lists in NHS history, a nation with rotting teeth and people being hospitalised with malnutrition and scurvy, billions of taxpayers' money wasted on PPE contracts for their rich mates, and they let the bodies pile high and killed tens of thousands of pensioners during the pandemic, and then they lied about it. They cut our armed forces. They closed and sold off our fire stations. They closed, then sold off our libraries. They didn't build those 40 new hospitals, and they forced councils into bankruptcy. They wasted billions on HS2. They voted to allow bankers to have unlimited bonuses. They allowed BP and Shell to steal our oil and gas reserves without paying taxes, whilst Norway, of course, went the other way and has a sovereign wealth fund of over 1.6 trillion. And record amounts of our tammies and turds are being churned into our rivers and oceans by our privatised water companies. Windrush, Grenfell, Partygate, Barnard Castle, 30p Lee, bullying, affairs, groping and rape and tractor porn and Chris Pincher and corruption and dirty deals and racist donors and lies and lies and lies. And yes, the pandemic didn't help, and the war in Ukraine hasn't helped, but don't believe them when they tell you that that's the reason that you are poorer this week than you were last week, whilst Rishi Sunak is richer this week than he was last week. Rishi Sunak cut taxes on champagne on the same day he cut funding to rebuild schools, and he wants to bring back national service. What else are they going to bring back? Grandstand? Spam on the national health? Snickers going back to marathon? I look forward to voting these incompetent, hubristic grifters out, and I hope they spend a very long time in the wilderness and have a really good think about what they just did. Well, a trip down memory lane there with some highs and some lows from the last 14 years.
Sorry. I have given this job my all, but you have sent a clear signal that the government of the United Kingdom must change, and yours is the only judgment that matters. I have heard your anger, your disappointment, and I take responsibility for this loss. To all the Conservative candidates and campaigners who worked tirelessly but without success, I am sorry that we could not deliver what your efforts deserve. It pains me to think how many good colleagues who contributed so much to their communities and our country will now no longer sit in the House of Commons. I thank them for their hard work and their service. Following this result, I will step down as party leader, not immediately, but once the formal arrangements for selecting my successor are in place. It is important that after 14 years in government, the Conservative Party rebuilds, but also that it takes up its crucial role in opposition professionally and effectively. When I first stood here as your Prime Minister, I told you the most important task I had was to return stability to our economy. Inflation is back to target, mortgage rates are falling, and growth has returned. We have enhanced our standing in the world, rebuilding relations with allies.
Okay, so then there you have it. I'm sorry. That's what we get as a nation after maybe nearly 2 years in office. So you get it, I'm sorry. And that is supposed to help families that maybe continue to lose a lot of money every month through high mortgage payments. Hard-working people that are basically working hand to mouth every day. And, high prices, you go to the supermarket, you try to buy fuel, and then what you get is, I'm sorry. So we get it. Anyway, now that we know that the guy is sorry, we are going to go on just to show the sophistication of the British electorate. And so something amazing has happened. Yeah, so you get the I'm sorry thing. Yeah, that's fine. But what is really amazing today is just the actions of the British electorate in their sophistication and the way that they've done things. So basically, Labour, with their landslide victory of about 412 seats in the parliament, is a huge majority. However, they only made 35% of the overall votes. So therefore, the seats that they have gained, these are all sort of margin seats. And so really, it's some sort of a warning to any party that leads this nation to basically communicate to that party that these swings can really happen. Because when Boris Johnson made that, those massive swings in 2019, nobody ever thought that obviously Conservatives could lose 249 seats. So in effect, it's a warning. It's a warning. It actually sends that message to Sir Keir Starmer not to really take the people of this nation for granted. Probably the other positive thing about it is that the way this country leads sort of democracy in the world, a lot of countries are always looking out to see what really happens in Britain. So today we have a man, Keir Starmer, who is very measured in everything that he does. Then not only is he measured, but he's really level-headed and communicates effectively, and he has a decent level of control over the Labour Party, because if we look at where the Labour Party was in 2019, nobody would have ever expected Sir Keir Starmer to come this far. But he's held on, he's established complete control and discipline within the party. He sends out Jeremy Corbyn for, obviously there's always anti-Semitism issues with Jeremy Corbyn, so he sends him out of the party. But the people of Islington also answers differently because Corbyn went in as an independent and he has actually taken Islington, so he's back in Parliament. So, this is a very sophisticated move by the electorate. The other thing is that you have people like Penny Mordaunt, who could have been tipped as the leader, obviously with Rishi Sunak going. She could have been the leader, but now she's lost her seat. Theresa May has lost her seat. Liz Truss also lost her seat. And so this is, wow, this is really sort of shocking, but at the same time, it's very sophisticated. And so this really goes on to really warn anyone that wants to lead this country to do their job and do it properly, because the I'm sorry thing doesn't really cut it. In my opinion, if a proper research is done on Rishi Sunak in terms of maybe the things that he has done, sort of financially against this country, a lot will be discovered, because obviously there's been a lot of conflict of interest, because many years ago such a thing wouldn't have happened, where you have a billionaire, his wife is a billionaire, but I take it he's a billionaire, and his contacts in the States, obviously from the wife's dad, really is a big issue, because with that conflict of interest, you are sitting at the helm making the decisions. So my only assumption is that if you're not like on a salary, which used to be what really happens to every MP and every PM, then basically you are making decisions to favor yourself. So this is one of the problems of this country. But today, this has been answered and basically come as a warning to anyone that really wants to lead this country. Then the other interesting thing that is also happening is that you've had somebody like, well, great news for the Greens, excellent news for the Greens for taking 4 seats in Parliament and also taking 7% of the overall votes. It's a big deal, probably something like 1.4 million votes. So it means that Greens have done extremely well with that level of improvement. They've done well. They must have probably come second at the back of many of these constituencies. So that's great for the Greens. I mean, myself, it's funny because I think, I had a conversation with a friend and they were like, oh, they're trying to sell me this Tory nonsense. But I said, for the first time, I said, even if you give me a gold bar, I'm not going to vote Tory. But obviously, this is somebody that have maybe, in the past voted Tory in many times. But on this occasion, it was a no-no for me. And it's just purely based on the record, the way they took this country for granted and just felt that they can, basically talk us, basically being taken like fools. But today, this is a big lesson for them, because I remember when the likes of John Major and Michael Heseltine spoke to Boris Johnson in the times of the mess to say, come on, get a grip on this party and stop this every 2 minutes having a prime minister, because these prime ministers, they cost this nation a lot of money. You have, like for example, this nation will now have to pay 5 prime ministers instead of 1. So this is the seriousness. And when the likes of Michael Heseltine and John Major tried to communicate, they were actually told that this story that is going now, it's not like those Tories of those days. This is a modern Tory, and where they feel that they had the power to do everything. But now we all hope that as they go into opposition, that they will stay there for a long time, so that when they will learn, so that next time when they come to power, they will really work for the good interest of this nation. What else do we have here? We also have Nigel Farage. He actually, I recall when he comes in to drop his note in promising to do stuff for Clacton on Sea, and somebody else comes in and don't vote for Nigel Farage, and then you get another letter with your name on it from Nigel Farage and some other guy still promoting Nigel Farage. But Clacton is also voted strategically to get Nigel Farage after his 8-time attempt to become an MP. Today, Nigel Farage becomes an MP for Clacton on Sea. All these are very strategic in the sense that he doesn't live here, he's not from here, but he's been given the seat. But the point is, the previous guy, in speaking to a neighbor, the previous guy that was here wasn't obviously being the MP for Clacton, was not even from Clacton as well. But Nigel Farage obviously is a loud mouth, he's a loud voice. And I think somehow he will also bring Clacton back onto the map in Westminster and draw in some developments in this probably the most deprived corner in Essex. So that is also another strategic a move from the electorate. So these are exciting times, and so I'm very happy to see the back of Mr. Rishi Sunak. I mean, the guy is believable. I'm very sure if I didn't discover the fact that he had printed that 450 billion pounds, you don't need to print cash. The reason is that we are in an economy where we do things on credits. If you see what I mean, if you credit my bank account, then that's fine. I know, okay, there's credit there. You don't have to print the cash. But this cash was printed so that it could go out to this PPE dodgy contracts and some people that are not in this country. And then eventually this money then comes back into this country through the purchases of properties and all the mess that goes on. So, this is it was like a big problem. And a lot of things just like went wrong, and the whole place looks like it was like very in a state of anarchy. And so with him coming back as PM, a lot of people that don't really understand how economics work would have seen him as a savior. But indeed, he is really not a savior, And so I hope that somebody may do a video that will really give, a full account of his own financial dealings and how better off he has become and his family in this time. At the end of the day, what is key is that it's not like, people are jealous of people making money. But the fact is that when, it's a nation that looks after the baseline. You need to have a baseline, and whatever you do, you must ensure that the baseline is also comfortable, that if the ordinary person gets out and go to work, that they have enough money to put food on the table, they have enough money to have a decent holiday, they have enough money to take a bit of time off, and they have enough pension. I know of a person whose pension pot was about probably something like nearly 500,000, and this pot has been cut into two. So the pot is sudden, the fund is performed so badly that they've had a drop. That significant drop is almost halved the pension that they work hard to put away. And these are the activities of this type of conflict of interest with the people that are billionaires at the helm making decisions for the country. And so when you have this type of a system, this causes a great problem. The next set of video is going to be focusing on Sir Keir Starmer, who, as far as I can see, comes across as a very level-headed guy, very determined, and he has that control. If he can gain that control over the Labour Party, it's kind of a hope that this is the guy that can really take this country to the next level. And the whole world is watching what this nation is doing, because, if you bring these people to account, accountability, bring them to account and basically strengthen regulation and rent control. So many things needs to be done, because now the nation has lost so much money that to get it back, you need to investigate on people. You need to basically make them accountable. You need to take back any money that has been taken off the state. This sort of ill-gain funds. You need to be looking at the entire tax structure to see where monies could be recovered to rebuild this nation. So whatever we're doing here, the whole world is watching. And so, yes, we are going to look at what options and basically who Keir Starmer is and what he can potentially do. The great thing today that we also heard is from the city. Obviously, Keir Starmer, because he's very level-headed, and very composed, he can be seen as very grey. But at this moment, we need somebody that is grey, that is determined, that is disciplined. Discipline, somebody that if you don't do what you have to do, then you're going to be out. Because Keir Starmer said, we are going to have a shift from the politics of performance to a politics of, public service. So indeed, that is what this nation needs. And policy, a lot of things just have to change. The whole policy thing needs to be revamped, to ensure that, this income inequality, the gaps that has been created since COVID is sort of bridged. And, all the regulators needs to be up and running. Ombudsmen, people that have had unjust events happening to them without redress. This is a time that we believe that this change is going to come, and it's necessary, a necessary change. And we, use this opportunity to thank the British electorate for taking this action. And hopefully with this, the world is also going to learn something from what we're doing as a way of correcting all the mess that has been going on. So thank you once again for watching EECR Talks. Share this video, like, add your comments and contributions. We are here to learn. It's a learning curve. If you know something, if you think Rishi Sunak is such a great guy, then please put those comments in there so that we are all learning. Yes. So thank you for watching.